what would be the advice that you would tell yourself in your early 30s? Um, Arlen, I know you kind of mentioned right about, that client that talked about for 10 years, but what would be the best advice in terms of your health and fitness goals, right? If it was like, oh man, I wish I would have invested in a Bitcoin, let's save that for another day. What would be the best advice in terms of your health and fitness goals that you would have shared with yourself in your early 30s?
I'm gonna jump ahead to 43.
Okay.
I was I
Yeah,
was
what
in
happened
the
at 43?
well, I was in the when I look back, I was probably in the best physical shape of my adult life when I was 43 years old.
Okay.
I was doing a ton of running. I was training for marathons. Um, I I may not have been as strong, certainly in the upper body. I may not have been as strong then as I am now, but in terms of body fat, in terms of preparedness, I was probably at the peak of my physical fitness at age 43. And at that time, if I could roll back to that point, I would tell myself to pay attention to the little things that at the moment don't seem like they matter, but they really do. It's people will tell you it's fine at Christmas. Have whatever desserts you want, whatever. It's fine. It's not that the food is bad, but you can't stay in that mode, right? And staying in that mode is what packs on the pounds into January, into February, into March. So that's fine. If you want to eat a piece of pie, that's for a special event, that's great. But that special event can't become an everyday thing.
Pause, right? This is so good, right? So good what you're saying right now. And I want everybody to listen up to what you're about to say, right? Arlen, what do you think people stay like? What do you think makes people stay in that mode, right? Because if you think about it, it's not just the guys on today's call, okay? This is who's ever tuning in on YouTube, the replay, Spotify, anything like that. And they might be stuck in that mode, right? And maybe they're struggling because they've tried several different diets, or they tried this, or they tried that. What do you think, right, makes people stay in that mode? Because you're absolutely right, right? It's the old saying, hey, somebody gives you an inch, you take a mile, right? Somebody gives you, a holiday to splurge, and all of a sudden you make it, oh, I got to eat the leftovers too, right? And then next thing you know, it's the snowball effect. So, what do you think makes somebody stay within this mode?
I don't know. For me, it's comfort.
Okay.
For me, it's comfort. It's comfortable to grab a couple of Oreo cookies. It's comfortable to to get some M&Ms. It tastes good and it's comfortable.
Yeah. I think it's lack of accountability, but I want to elaborate a little bit more about that. I always go to like the old military route, right? Where it's just like what makes people change, right? It's typically a force, right? And like, yes, a drill instructor is a driving force, but they're there also to hold you accountable. Like, if you think about it, right? Let's say I'm at boot camp, right? Paris Island, South Carolina, and it's like, hey, I'm with my squad. And let's just say, like, I didn't feel like running with the pack, right? Doing my PT or anything like that. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get my butt chewed out, not just from the drill instructor, but also all the guys that I'm holding back. And let's say, like, the next time that happens, it's like, man, like now all of a sudden the whole squad, they have to do extra push ups or extra miles or anything like that. And now I'm really letting people back down, right? My opinion, the reason why people stay in this mode, one key word. It's the one word that literally almost made me commit suicide. It's the one word that, in my opinion, is why people are typically, fall into addiction. It's the one word that typically people suffer the most when it comes to depression. It's the one word why people typically fall into just being fat, lazy, out of shape. Isolation.
Hmm.
Isolation. They isolate themselves. They get stuck in this own mind game where they're like, oh, I can do this all by myself, right? Or I don't need anybody's help. Or, right, they isolate themselves from the pack. And as you guys know, right, three phrases I love to say. One, Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another. Second, Les Brown said, birds of a feather flock together. Surround yourself with losers, you're going to become a loser. Surround yourself with winners, you're going to become a winner. And the third one from Jim Rome, you become the sum of the five people that you surround yourself with the most. So it's like the biggest way to change your identity, the biggest way to change your life, and the fastest way to change your life is surround yourself with like minded individuals. Why do you think I tell you guys so much? Get your butts inside the community group, make a takeaway post, engage with people, ask questions, share that you need help, right? Because here's what happens when you isolate, and life throws you curveballs, which here's the reality, it always does. If you're the fly on the wall because you didn't want to engage, what makes you think you're ever going to raise your hand and ask for help? You're too busy isolating yourself, playing these mind games with yourself, saying, "Oh, I got this. Oh, I'll overcome this." But realistically, all you're doing is putting a band-aid to the gunshot wound, and you're slowly bleeding out more and more and more. Brian, Malcolm, let's go to you next, man. What would you tell your early, thank you, Arlen, by the way. What would you tell your early 30s, right? Like the best health and fitness advice, or what would you just tell yourself, knowing everything that you know now?
Can I go back further than 30?
Bro, you can go back to when you're a little sperm swimming in your dad's pee-pee. I don't care.
Okay, so the first thing I would do is I'd go back to my senior year of high school. My parents split up, and you're talking about isolation.
Yeah.
How I dealt with that divorce. I know it's not the end of the world. For me, it was, because, my senior year, middle and senior, my parents all of a sudden now, I mean, you don't realize it. That had a huge impact on me, and I isolated. And what I did is, after I graduated high school, I just got 3 jobs and I just buried myself in my work because I got tired of my dad always asking about my mom. And it was just this back and forth thing where I was in the middle of my two parents all the time and I hated it. So I just isolated myself. And that's probably the worst thing I ever did. I wish I would have learned at 18, like community group, working on yourself. It's okay to admit like there's things that are wrong in your life and that you need help with.
Yeah.
That'd be the first thing. And then secondly, I think the low carb fad, I wish I would have never gotten to that. I think that destroyed my metabolism. I wish I would have learned at a very early age, just eat protein, don't eat like a jackass. Cause that was my other thing too. Like I used to have the philosophy, I got 20 minutes before my brain registers I'm full. So I got to try to eat as much as I possibly can in that 20 minutes. And it was just the mindset, man. So to me, the mindset and and, and not understanding that because when you're younger, you feel like you're invincible and you don't need help from anybody. You know everything, and I feel like that's completely opposite of why we're in this world. We're in this world for community. You're not supposed to go on this earth by yourself. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to
Yeah.
be inspire others, help each other out. Because when you help others out, you help yourself out. So that's the number one takeaway for me. Is that at a young man, especially when you're first coming up, that would have been my number one top three things I would have told myself.
I love it, man. What you spoke was very good, honestly, because if you think about it, right? Like you mentioned about, hey, don't isolate yourself. You mentioned about like doing these things. What typically makes us isolate ourselves? Pride and ego.
Yeah.
It's always goes down to pride and ego, right? If you think about it, right? That's what happened with Lucifer, right? He was an angel at one time, but got too prideful, right? So it's just like these are the lessons that we need to learn, guys. And as you know, right, like looking back and what is the advice that I would tell myself, right? It's like, okay, let's make sure that history doesn't repeat itself. Let's make sure that we surround ourselves with people. Let's make sure that we put the ego, we put the pride aside, we ask for help. And going back, Brian, what you said, because you mentioned about like the divorce and all that stuff, like this is why I want to have that impact on dads' lives, right? Where it's like that's the legacy that I want to live. Because if you think about it, like if you and your father was really comfortable, right, where you guys can talk and bond and share all that stuff,
Yeah.
you would
No.
feel, you would feel the need though, right, to express your emotions. Because how many
Hmm.
times, guys, right? I'm speaking just heart to heart, right? We're too scared to tell, our insecurities. We're too scared to tell our flaws. We're too scared to tell our self-limiting beliefs. We're too scared to cry and share our emotions with other, guys out there, right? Let alone our own parents, right? Like our own dads. Like it's hard because we haven't had somebody actually lead the way. We haven't had somebody actually say, like, hey, son, right? This is what you should do. Hey, it's okay to cry. Hey, it's okay to share what you're scared of. Hey, it's okay to talk about yourself anyways. Hey, it's okay. And as you guys know, the monkey, right? No, that's a bad phrase. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right? Monkey see, monkey do, right? That's what I was gonna say. So it's like if our dads were willing to do this, we're gonna feel more comfortable, confident doing the same exact thing, and it's gonna have the snowball effect to then our kids. So thank you for sharing that, Brian. Gabe, let's go to you next, and then Tyler, and then Jeff Koons.
Yeah, I was kind
Gabe,
of I was thinking back and forth. And it's funny that you're saying that because as you know, I started my hypnosis and I'm gonna share something in the community group tonight. Um, and I actually went back to my younger self, right? And he asked me, what should I say to that younger self? And um, I just simply told myself that, I'm the nicest, smartest savage in the world, you know. But if I was to give myself some advice, um, I would say get jacked and make money. Work out, work on yourself. get coaching along the way in all areas, life, spiritual, business, whatever it is, get coaching. Don't do it by yourself. And I would tell myself not to invest. Don't invest in the stock market. Don't invest in real estate. Invest in yourself. It's the
Oh,
biggest investment that you can do.
yeah, Alex Hormozy always says, don't invest in the S&P 500, invest in the SME 500, right? Because when you
Yeah.
invest in yourself, that's always going to be the greatest ROI. I can't wait to see what you say inside the community group of the hypnosis.
Yeah. It took, so the past, just so you know, the past 2 weeks has been an insane roller coaster ride.
Mhm.
Because you're really just dealing with your past. And it's funny how you're saying all about your past and how that affects you. Uh, and and you asked me why, and I tell you, I spent like an hour and a half on my why, and I was having a hard time getting to the bottom. And I think why guys have a hard time getting into their why and building that why to be so rock solid, because I think the why, at least for me, and I'm pretty sure other people struggle with the same thing, is the why is actually a two-legged animal. It's not a one-legged thing. The why
Mhm.
allows, it's like a fuel that goes into your tank. That's your why, but you need the motor to drive and provide the horsepower, and it's the identity. It's who you are. So you could have the why, and the why can be super powerful and strong and have obscene amount of meaning to you that surpasses your own understanding. But if you don't identify who you are and who you are now and who you were and who you're trying to become, right? Because we're all trying to get better, or else none of us will be here. You can't. It just doesn't work. They don't match. It's like the gear, right? You're slipping gears because you're trying to stick the why, and the why, you know what the why is, but that identity of who you are, and that's really what I've been working on, is who am I, right? And that's something that, I'm definitely going to be sharing with the community later on. I'm probably do a video. It's a lot better that way. But really, of who are you, right? What do you identify? And you shouldn't identify as like, oh, I work at I work at, I don't know, Berkshire Hathaway, or I work at an accounting firm. You should never identify as your job. And then who are you? So, and that's really what has been my journey lately. Who am I?
Yeah, you'll find out here real quick. When you start asking yourself that and start peeling back the layers more and more, your life's going to change really quick. Because like at its core, that's on the highest level of the vibrational plane, right? Before enlightenment, which is tip at the top, but it's authenticity, right? When you're
Yep.
true to your roots, when you're true to who you are, like you get confidence like no other, because you don't need somebody to tell you, hey, an affirmation or good job today or anything like that. And also, you don't even need to tell yourself an affirmation because you already know it's true. That's it's
You,
just being
you're,
authentic.
yeah, you're living your affirmation.
Mhm.
Right now, you're
Oh,
telling your affirmation so that you can believe in yourself. Once you become your affirmation, holy crap, and I got a little taste of it, and it's like a drug. You want more because you
yeah.
feel so good.
Yeah, the problem is, I'll say this real quick, and then we'll go to Tyler and then Jeff Koons if we have time. Think about it like this, right? Glass of water. Here, let me spotlight myself so you guys can see. This is how the mind games work, guys. This is very good for you guys to understand. And okay, let's say this is 100%, right, from top to the bottom. Now, about 95% is filled up with liquids, okay? Your 5%, guys, this is your conscious mind. 95% is your subconscious mind. So what Gabe's doing with hypnosis, meditation, right? Like all these things about peeling back the layers, guys, you're working on your subconscious mind. The problem is that from the ages when you're first born, and even neurologists said when you are in your mother's womb, right? Things are starting to get implanted into your own brain, into your own subconscious mind until you're about 7 years old, right? And then it's just like, okay, hey, you gain your consciousness. You can now remember things, you can start doing things more for yourself, etc. The problem is, like, as we get older, right, we have built up a nest egg, right, of self-limiting beliefs. Maybe this is money doesn't grow on trees, right? You can't throw away food because there's people in third world countries that are starving to death, good foods versus bad foods, right? Like you're going to be on blood pressure the rest of your life, etc., right? I can't do this because I failed at it one time in school or whatever the case might be, right? It's these lies, right? And every single time that you're working on your mindset, which is so important, okay? Think about this as just like a small little drop, right? You're taking it out, you're taking it out, you're taking it out, you're taking it out. It takes a long time. By the time, right, you get to your 40s, 50s, 60s, you are filled with so much self-doubt, so much negativity, so many self-limiting beliefs in your own, head. It's like, man, you start to wonder, like, is it even possible for me to lose weight? Is it even possible for me to start a business? Oh, I can't do this. And this is why it's so important, once again, to just find out what resonates with you. Like Colonel Sanders, right? Dude failed at business so many times. It wasn't until he was like 67 years old, or maybe even like early 70s, when KFC actually popped off, right? And he actually, started his franchise. Um, uh, what's to do with the running, right? 4 minute mile. Why can't I think of it? What can't I think of it? Somebody help me out, guys. I talk about him all the time. Who ran the 4 minute
Roger
mile?
Bannister.
Banner.
Thank you, Bannister, right? You know, he literally failed. He had on a piece of paper, right, that was taped on the bottom of his shoe, 39.59, right? Or excuse me, 3.59 taped on the bottom of his shoe. And every time he failed, he would take off his shoe and just continue to look at that. And vice versa. Every time he put on a shoe, continue to look at that, right? That's a visual scene that's getting his subconscious mind until he's working it, right? Every time he fails, guess what? He tries again. That's taking out those self-limiting beliefs, taking out those doubts. And like, once again, guys, we have to focus so much, right, on working on ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It's not one playing field, it's all four of them, okay? Because that's what's going to help us. Because if I was going to take, let's just say, some black dye, right, that would be a better analogy, and start dropping in here, this whole thing's going to be black negativity, right? And like, let me ask you a question now. If I was going to have this that was full of black dye, and if I was going to take one drop of, let's say, white dye and drop it in there, do you think it's all going to turn white instantly? No, right? It's barely even going to show anything. I got to put a lot more drops, a lot more drops, a lot more drops. And even when I do that, guys, even when I do this, I'm going to end it on this. I can put in 100 drops of black dye, 100 drops of white dye, and guess what? It's going to look brown. It's going to look muddy. How do you actually clean out, right, the gunk that's in your head? You let it out, right? You talk about it. You go see a therapist. You go do hypnosis. You do meditations, right? You join a coaching program where we're literally peeling back the layers. That's the only way to clear yourself of the gunk. That's why, once again, like, if you guys want to be stuck the rest of your lives, just isolate yourself. But if you want to thrive in your life, just like what you said, Gabe, join coaching, right? For all playing fields, for all areas, right? Like, being around other people, that's what's going to help you thrive. That's what's always going to be the fastest way and the most successful way to achieving your goals, plain and simple.